opening prayers. Om Shanno Mitra Sham Varunaha Shanno Bhavatvaryama Shanna Indro Brihaspatihi Shanno Vishnurukramaha Namo Brahmane Namaste Vayo Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahmasi Tvameva Pratyaksham Brahma Vadishyami Ritam vadishyami, satyam vadishyami, tanmamavatu, tadvaktaram avatu mam, avatu vaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Sahana vavatu, sahanau bhunaktu, sahaviryankaravavahai. Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Yas chandaso mrishabho, Yas chandasa mrishabho vishvarupaha chandobhyodhyamrita at sambabhuva samendro medhaya aspranotu amritasya devadharano bhuyasam shariram me vicharshanam Jihva me madhumattama karna abhyam bhuri vishruvam brahmanav koshosi medhaya pihitaha shrutam me gopaya om shanti 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 aham rikshasya reriva kirtif prishtam gireriva urdha pavitro vajiniva sramritamasmi Dravina savarchasam sumedha amritokshitaha itirtishankor vedanu vachanam om shanti 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 purnamadav purnamidam purnat purnamudachyate purnasya purnamadaya purnameva vashishyate om shanti shanti Shanti. Apyayantu mama angani vakpranaschakshuh shrotramatho balamindriyani cha sarvani sarvam brahma upanishadam maham brahma nirakuryam mama brahma nirakarot anirakaranamastu anirakaranam me astu Tadatmani nirateya upanishatsu dharmaha te mai santu om shanti 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 vang me manasi pratisthita mano me vachi pratishthitam avir ma edhi vedasya ma ani isthaha shrutam me ma prahasihi Anenaditena ahoratran sandadhami ritam vadishyami satyam vadishyami tanmam avatu tadvaktaram avatu mam avatu vaktaram om shanti 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 bhadram no pivataya manaha Om Shanti 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 Bhadram Karnebhi Shrunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashyema Akshabhiryajatraha Sthirairangaistuštubhagum Sastanubhi Vyashema Devahitan Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vriddhashrabaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti nastarksho arishtanemihi Swasti no brihaspatirdadhatu Om Shanti 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 Yo Brahmanam vidadhati purvam Yo vai vedamscha prahinoti tasmai Tagum hadevam atma buddhi prakasham Mumukshur vai sharanamaham prapadye Om Shanti 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 Shrutismritipurananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpada Shankaram Lokashankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashya Kritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punaha Narayanam Padmabhuvam Vasishtam Shaktim cha Tatputra Parasharam cha Vyasam Shukam Gaudapadam Mahantam Govinda Yogindra Mathasya Shishyam Sri Shankaracharya Mathasya Padmapadam cha Hastamalakam cha Shishyam Tam Totakam Vartikakaram Anyan Gasmadgurun Santato Manatosmi Om Vishwam Darpana Drishyamana Nagari Tulyam Nijantargatam Pashyannatmani Mayaya Bahiribodbhutam Yatha Nidraya Yas Sakshat Kurute Prabodha Samaye Swatmanam Evadvayam Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namahitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Bijasyantarivankuro Jagadidam Prang Nirvikalpam Punaha Maya Kalpita Desha Kala Kalana Vaichitrya Chitri Kritam Maya Viva Vijrambhayatyapi Maha Yogi Vayasvechaya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Yasyaiva Spuranam Sadatmakam Asatkalparthakam Bhasate Sakshat Tattvamasiti Veda Vachasa Yo Bodhayatyashritan Yat Sakshat Karanat Bhavenna Punaravrittir Bhavambo Nidhau Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaitam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Nana Chidragatodara Sthita Mahadipa Prabhabhaswaram Jnanam Yasya Tu Chakshuradhikarane Dwara Bahispandate Janami Titameva Bhantamanubhatye Tatsamastam Jagat Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Deham Pranamapindriyanapi Chalam Buddhim cha Shunyam Viduhu Stri Balandha Jadopamastwamiti Bhranta Bhrisham Vadinaha Maya Shakti Vilasa Kalpita Maha Vyamoha Samharine Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye. So let us chant the first two Brahma Sutra. So we will do this twice. And the second time you can just, first time you can listen, and the second time you can pronounce with me, or do both at the same time. Athato Brahma Jigyasa Athato Brahma Jigyasa Janmadyasya Yataha Janmadyasya Yataha. So what we had done in the last class was to actually read the Shankara Bhashya and saw its meaning of the Bhashya itself. So let us continue on that. We will take this first paragraph. And by the way, I hope now that doubt about whether you have this text that is available to you has been cleared. There's been some issue with some people actually can see it. Some people were not able to see it because it was not, I don't know. But anyway, I sent it out again, so you should all have it. So for those of you that follow the Sanskritam here, let us finish the first paragraph today, and then we will go into some logical analysis that Swami Paramarthananda has led us to. Very interesting, and we will see that in a few minutes. But so here, in this first paragraph of this text that I sent to you on page 7, Janmadyasya Yataha. So let us start with a complete, this is just a revision, we have already done this, a complete definition of what this sutra means. Because the sutra is alpaksharam, asangdibdham, means that it is a very, very short, precise, and so you have to supply some words to make a complete sentence that we are used to seeing in our life. So that complete sentence is now summarized by the following sentence given by Adi Shankara. It says, it occurs in the middle of the paragraph, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6th line. So he says that this is the meaning of the sutra. He's providing the complete meaning. He says, Asya jagataha namarupabhyam vyakritasya aneka kartra bhoktra samyuktasya pratiniyata desha kala nimitta kriyaphala ashrayasya manasapi achintya rachana rupasya janmasthiti bhangam yataha sarvagyat sarvashaktehe karanat bhavati tad brahma iti vakya sheshaha. So he says that the meaning of janmadyasya yataha, so he's taken all of the words and strung them together and said the meaning of Brahman. So remember that the second sutra is intended to give us the lakshana of Brahman. First sutra was that therefore, thereafter, the preparation of one's life and the maturity of one's life, there is a need to know Brahman. Brahman means the truth about ourselves. Who am I? Where am I going? Where did I come from? What's my future? What's my reality? What's the essence of what's the nature? What is the source of my happiness? All those questions. And so this is called Brahma Jigyasa. So Brahma Jigyasa means that Brahman is in fact the very basis of our existence. This is me, the Atma. I am Atma Brahma. So then there is a need to understand what that is. So this was the first sutra. Now the question is, how do you define Brahman? You have defined a word. You have presented a word Brahman, and you need to define it precisely. What is it? How is it different from everything else? And so until I know how to know it, so this is what is called Lakshana Pramanabhyam Artha Siddhi, as we have seen. You cannot desire something until you know what it is. And so here, what is the Lakshana of this Brahman? This is the reason for the second sutra. And so he defines it precisely. He says that one, Asya Jagataha Nama Rupabhyam Vyakritasya. He says that the one which is the cause of the entire set of experiences in our life, Nama Rupabhyam Vyakritasya, night, day, dream, waking, good, bad, all those kinds of Vyakritasya, all variegated experiences. The one which is the reason for that, Asya Jagataha. So Jagataha is now defining as Nama Rupa Bhyam. So he gives a long definition of what Jagat means. So one of them is Nama Rupa Bhyam Vyakritasya, one which has been variegated in terms of name and form. And then Aneka Kartra Bhoktra Samyuktasya. And so now we have a Jagat which is characterized by people resolving to do specific actions and then reaping the results of that. I mean, if you look at your life, this is exactly what it is. You make a decision. I think I'm going to do this. Then, whether you actually accomplish or not is the phala. That has its own laws associated with it, whether you are able to fulfill your desires or not. Anyway, that's what is called aneka kartra bhoktra samyuktasya. And then also not only that, pratiniyata desha kala nimitta kriya phala ashrayasya. And so the results that you get for your kartritvam is not random. It's not random. There is an order behind all of that. And so this is why we do life, we experience life based on a certain assurance that some laws of nature work. As we have talked about this many times, that you expect the temperature to boil the water at a particular temperature. Sometimes it boils, sometimes it doesn't mean life will not happen. It won't happen. And so this is what is called niyata desha kala nimitta kriya phalashrayasya. And then manasa api achintya rachana rupasya. That you cannot imagine all the things that are going on. You cannot, how the whole srishti works, how the brain works, all the diseases, their resolution, and the laws of the nature, devatas, and so on. Amazing. Human beings can only grasp some portions of it, but it is really beyond our human understanding. Cannot say now we have understand. In fact, what the scientists say is the more you know, the less you know. The more you understand how things are, you begin to see that yes, we have understood a lot, but there is much more to be done. Our acharyas say that just a simple rose that you can get, you can have multiple PhDs on understanding how the rose has a particular aroma, a certain color, the DNA. It is so achintya rupa, achintya manasa api achintya rachana rupasya. And then janma sthiti bhangam means that everything is born from which, and one which stays in which, and one which is gone, one which gets resolved in which. That is sarvagyat sarvashaktehe, one which is all knowing, which is behind all this. It is not random. There is a person who created all this and has the ability, sarvashaktehe. One which is the karana is called Brahma. So this is the lakshana of Brahman. Complete sentence. Then in the next sentence, anyesham api bhava vikaranam trishu eva antarbhava iti janmasthiti nashanam iha grahanam. So here there is some side discussion, which I mentioned to you before, but I won't repeat it because it's not quite as important as the other one aspects of it. So here he says, how come only three are mentioned? Because as Yaska had given, there are 6 Shadbhava Vikaraha. Why don't I have you take all 6 of them? So it is said that those are antarbhavam. They are already included in these three. And so we are just going to take these three. Anyway, I won't go into, so that's what the next two sentences is. Then we will finish this paragraph with an introduction to an important Purva Paksha, an important doubt, you can even say objection to this. And so now begins a new topic. But to introduce that topic, let me continue to follow the Shankara Bhashya until the end of this paragraph. And then we will take off in a much more detailed, specific form, which I'll come to that in a few minutes. So to introduce that, the sentence to start is nacha. Nacha yatha ukta visheshanasya jagataha yatha ukta visheshanam ishwaram muktva anyataha anyataha pradhanat acetanat anubhyo va abhavat va sansarino va utpatyadi sambhavayitum shakyam. Okay, so he says that other than how we have defined Brahman, which we just did, Tad Brahma, Vakya Sheshaha. So he says, other than this definition, which has all the gunas, all the qualities, the very powers of this Brahman, other than this Brahman, it is not possible to fulfill the definition of how the world is. Nacha yathokta visheshanasya. Yathokta visheshanasya means, yatha ukta visheshanasya means that the one that has been cited. What has been cited? Asya jagataha nama rupabhyam vyakritasya. That one. And yatha ukta visheshanam ishwaram. So here, notice that he has, Adi Shankara has quietly replaced the word Brahman with Ishwaram. And this is what is followed in Vedanta, that Brahman and Ishwaram are one and the same. So Brahman is you can say, is the Swarupa Lakshanam, and Ishvara is the Tatastha Lakshanam. This is one way to look at it. Another way to look at that is that Brahman is the intrinsic, and Ishvara includes the incidental. And by the way, this is exactly what we should think about when we approach this as ourselves. So it is not something that you are doing academically, this is Ishvara, this is Brahman. Really speaking, this describes each one of us. So each one of us has two aspects of our personality. One is the incidental. This is what would be called personality. And the other one is the intrinsic, which is called the person. This is exactly who we are. We need to understand exactly the differences between them, their relationship, and the implication of doing this. And once we are done, if we are able to see this clearly, we are done. So here it means that, so word Ishvara and Brahman is exactly the same. I am also the Atma, but I am also endowed with a lot of external things, which keep on changing. They don't remain the same. The same thing is there in the daytime, and nighttime is slightly different. When I'm dreaming, it's something else. When I'm awake, it's something else. So all these paraphernalia, the personality, has a change. And the very basis of the change is the Swarupa Lakshana, which is myself. So in that sense, I am the Atma, and I am also the Jiva. Pranadharanam. So this is what we call Jivatma. So the word Jivatma has two aspects to it. One is Jiva, which is a personality. The other one is Atma, which is myself. Similarly to that is the distinction between Brahman and Ishvara. Ishvara is Maya Samyuktasya, along with all of the Maya, the power of the creation. So this is also the Purusha and Prakriti. All of those kinds of things you are familiar with. So that distinction is kept in mind, and very quietly the word Brahman has been supplemented by the word Ishwaram. Why that was the case? Why is it exactly? Why did we make the change from Brahman to Ishwaram? This will be explained in a bit, as this is the new topic that we are looking at. Anyway, let me going back to it. Nacha yatha ukta visheshanasya jagataha yatha ukta visheshanam ishwaram. It means yatha ukta visheshanam brahman. Tad brahma. What kind of visheshanam brahma? We saw all of that, which is pratiniyata deshakala nimitta kriya phala ashrayasya manasapi achintya rachana rupasya janmasthiti bhangam yataha sarvagyat sarvashakte karanat. That Brahman, that Ishvara. So now let us look at the meaning of this sentence. Nacha, other than as defined earlier, there is no other possibility of anyone doing this except for Brahman and Ishvara. No other one. So that's what it says. Nacha yathaukta visheshanasya jagataha yathaukta visheshanam ishwaram muktva. Other than, devoid of that, devoid of this definition, anyataha, in any other way, na sambhavayitum shakyam. It is not possible. Anyataha, he is now given some definition of how other things do. One of them is pradhanat achetanat. So he does the definition of the Sankhya philosophy. So here we can start using the word philosophy, not jnanam. Not jnanam. Philosophy means speculation. And so the speculation by the Sankhya people is that there are two things that are combining together to make this world. One is called pradhana. And pradhana is what? It is nature. So it has the sattva, rajas, so it all comes from them. And we borrow that part of it, sattva, rajas, and tamas. So trigunatmika maya. This is called pradhana. And pradhana means what? He says it has certain qualities and so on and so forth. But is it conscious? No, it is not conscious. It is not conscious. Achetanat pradhanat nachas sambhavitum shakyam. No. You cannot be a creator unless you're conscious. A table cannot create itself. A conscious person has to, if you want to make a machinery out of it, then a conscious person has to do it. No. Anyataha pradhanat achetanat anubhyaha. Well, these are some particles that combine together. This is the modern scientist. That the particles somehow combine together. Come on. Particle, exactly the same thing. Achetanasya particles, they don't have any sense. You need to have consciousness. Is the consciousness in the particles? No, no, it's not in the particles. Then no, no. Abhavatva. Abhavatva here refers to Buddhism, where it says Shunyavadinaha, that everything is nothing. What kind of a philosophy is this? At the end of that, everything is nothing. There is something going on. What looks anyway? Abhavatva. Sansarino va. Sansarino means that you cannot be done through this. You cannot say someone did it. Someone means sansari one, someone who had the need to do it, one who was very afflicted and he wanted to create this whole world. No, no. So he says, no, that's not possible. And then let me finish this and then I'll come back to the details of the next topic. Nacha swabhavataha. So this also is, this has a long commentary. I was reading this in, so swabhavataha means one which comes by itself. So this is Darwin's, somehow the Darwin's theory, that it just self-evolves. Through it, just evolution is just by itself. Darwin had given this example that that when you have these insects, the insects that are staying in a green forest with leaves, green leaves, and the insects that have the best way to survive are the ones who are green in color. There's some logic to it, a good logic to it. Why? Because all these birds and other things that are picking on these insects cannot easily distinguish the green of the insect with the green of the leaf. So they leave them alone. They cannot really do it. But they pluck off all the brown color and the red color insects and so on. Therefore, it is the survival of the fittest and it happens automatically. People that are able to blend into the background survive and the others don't. So his theory is that this evolution happens by itself. No. You may have certain aspects of it, there's no doubt about it, but eventually for it to just evolve by itself without an chetana vastu, that is the main thing. You need to have a chetana person behind all of this. Machineries do not work without a person. So, na swabhavataha vishishta desha kala nimittanam iha upadanat. A long discussion about that, but I think that suffices. Then this paragraph ends with the last line, which is a springboard to now a further discussion, which I will begin in a minute. So let me finish this last part of the sentence. Etat eva anumanam. So the word anumanam is very key here. Means logic. Logic. Etad eva anumanam sansari vyatirikta ishvara astitvadi sadhanam manyante ishvara karana vadinaha. Etad eva anumanam samsari vyatirikta ishvara astitvadi sadhanam manyante ishvara karana vadinaha. So now begins a discussion about Ishvara Karana Vadinaha. So this is the Nyaya philosophy, Nayayikaha. So it's an interesting to pause to see who are the Nayayikaha. The Nayayikas can be seen to be the modern science plus Ishvara. It was called Ishvara Karana Vadinaha. It seems to be that way. So suppose that the science, the so-called modern science, the modern science means the one which is much more detailed than it used to be before. Because now we have evolved into a better understanding of how particles combine together into atoms, into various forms, how gravitational forces work. So this is what the modern science is. And if you were to, and it is still evolving, people begin to put two and two together. They put some lines to see how things are working, and more intelligence is being added to modern science. Suppose at some point in time, but they don't accept Ishvara. They don't assume that there is some kind of a God behind all this. Some do, some don't. But in general, the modern scientists do not depend upon a definition of Ishvara. So they say this is a big bang, it just happens, and so we are just trying to see, and I think we can figure it all out. We can do it. It's not a big problem. I mean, it is a big problem, but we can figure it out. But then suppose you also introduce an understanding, it becomes prevalent amongst the modern scientists that there is some God behind all this. Then those people would be called Nayayika. And this has been going on for thousands of years. Nothing new. This is what is called Nayayika, Nyaya philosophy. So the Nyaya philosophy, so just follow this argument now. This is going to be interesting in the next few minutes for the rest of this class on how this happens. So the Nyaya philosophy says that Ishvara is the cause of this world. Well, we are saying the same thing. So what's the big problem? Isn't the Nayayikas and Vedantins all agree? Yes and no. The yes part is very obvious. We also say Ishvara is the cause. And Nayayikas also feel Ishvara is the cause. So where is that is the yes? Where is the no? How come they do not agree? This is what we have to now look. And so this is a very interesting analysis. So this analysis, to introduce this analysis, please make the following note. And that is that there is a expanding explanation of Brahma Sutra based on the sampradaya that understands what the meaning of this Brahma Sutra is. So the first level is Adi Shankara's Bhashya, as we have seen. Adi Shankara also gives the Bhashya. That's what the expansion of the Brahma Sutra is. Then there are further commentaries on the Shankara Bhashya. Because the Bhashya cannot be so detailed. Otherwise, you cannot just complete the analysis with all the details in a manifest form. It has to be done up to a certain explanation. This is what is called unfolding. So the unfolding has layers. So one layer at a time. The one layer is the Bhashya. Another layer is the commentary. And there are various commentaries on it. So there are two famous commentaries on the Bhashya. This is not the commentary on the Brahma Sutra, it's the commentary on Bhashya. So one of them is what is called Bhamati, and the other one is called Ratna Prabha. So the Ratna Prabha was composed by one Govindananda. And from our sampradaya, it is said that the Ratna Prabha is the one we should really follow. Because there are some differences between them, and the one which makes most sense in our sampradaya, in our way of looking at it, is the one provided by Ratna Prabha by Govindananda. So that's the next level of detail of the commentary. Then, after that, there is a commentary on Ratna Prabha. So this commentary in the Ratna Prabha is composed by one Swami Purnananda Saraswati. It's called Purnanandiya Vyakhya. It's called Vyakhya. All these are Vyakhyas because only one commentary is called Bhashya, which is Adi Shankara. Everything else is a Vyakhya. So this Purnanandiya Vyakhya has now commented on Ratna Prabha, and Ratna Prabha has commented on the Bhashya, and Bhashya is commented on the Brahma Sutra. So these are the four levels of explanation, four different unfolding levels. Why we are pointing this out is because we are now going to take up the Purnanandiya logic in explaining what this last sentence was. Etadeva anumanam sansari vatirikta. This one. This is the reason that we are going to now branch off into Purnanandiya. Why that is the case, you will see that in a minute. 8:41. So I have about half hour. I hope to complete this. If not, then we'll go to the next one. Okay? Now the Purnanandiya, as a side note, is only written for the first four sutras. It's called Chatusrutri. Chatusrutri, I think, is the name of it. And I don't have a copy of that. I do have a copy of the Ratna Prabha. I think I mentioned it to you, which is this is the Hindi translation of the Ratna Prabha. Beautiful. Now we're just reading this also in an explanation. And so the Ratna Prabha is there. The Brahma Sutra Bhashya by Swami Gambhirananda does not have this next level of detail. It probably understands it, but they don't really go into it word for word. But this Ratna Prabha does. But then, beyond that is the Purnanandiya's Chatusrutri. Okay? Alright, so this is the background. Now let me tell you what is the content of this whole discussion and why is it important for us. Okay? Alright. So this is what is called Nayayika. So the Nayayikas say that we can figure out that Ishvara is the cause of the universe by ourselves. We don't need Vedanta to tell us that. We don't need Vedanta to teach us that Ishvara is the cause of the world. We can figure it out. How can we figure it out? Because what we see is that anything which is composed, created, must be done by a conscious person. So this much we all agree. You all agree. Okay? Furthermore, they say they are also following not following, but they are aware of the Brahma Sutra. So they are saying, you say, means Vedantins, that the second sutra is only for Lakshana. And the third sutra, which is going to come later, is the Pramana. This is what have we been saying. Remember that Lakshana Pramana Bhyam Artha Siddhihi. So the second sutra is for Lakshana, and the third sutra is the Pramana. Means first you define exactly what Brahman is, and then you have to say, how do you know it? What is the pramana? What is the means of knowing it? That comes in the next sutra. This is what we say. Nayayika say no. The second sutra, as you are composing, Janmadi Yasya Yataha, is both Lakshana as well as Pramana. You define it, and therefore it's a good definition. You've done a good job of defining it, but this is how you know it. So we say how? How do you know this is also a pramana? He says that is through anumanam, through inference, through logic, what is called tarka. So this is an important thing for us to now grasp. If there's one thing to grasp from all this discussion, is the nature of anumanam, the power of anumanam, the limits of anumanam. So this is what is called shruti, yukti, and anubhava. So this is the yukti. Yukti means logic, tarka, inference. So the Nayayikas say that it should be obvious to us that there is Ishvara creating the whole world, as you say. And so therefore it is not just, this is not just Lakshana, it is also the Pramana. What is the Pramana? Anumana is the Pramana. So we can figure it out. It's very obvious. So why do you need to have another sutra to say that here is what the Shruti is saying, as we will see later on when we do the third sutra? You don't need to say that. We can figure it out, you can figure it out, I'll prove it to you. So we say, no, you cannot do that. This is the discussion which now follows. Why do we say that? And this discussion is most lucidly, very clearly presented by Purnanandiya. So Adi Shankara assumes it. In fact, he says it. In fact, I'll show it to you. He does say it, but he doesn't go into the details of it. In fact, let's look at the beginning of the second paragraph, just a couple of lines. After that, we'll have to leave it. So he says, Nanu. So Nanu, of course, means Purva Paksha. Nanu iha api tadeva upanyastam janmadi sutre. What is upanyastam? Upanyastam means this is summarized. Upanyasa means that it is included in that. It is summarized. He says, what is summarized? Iha api. Then we go to the previous sentence. Etadeva anumanam, etc., etc., manyante ishvara karana vadinaha. So he says, Etadeva anumanam samsari vyatirik Ishwar Astitvadi Sadhanam Manyante. A very important thing to see. He says, the Nayayika says, how come this is Nayayika? It says, Ishvara Karana Vadina. The one who say Ishvara is the Karana. Those people. And so those people, we also say the same thing, but here it is distinguished between Nayayikas and Vedantins. So he says the Nayayikas say that the cause of the universe has to be someone other than a samsari. See the logic? The logic is that a person which is born into the Jagat, like you and I, we are born into it. We're one of the people that is a very small part of this whole Jagat. Now, a born person cannot understand how the whole born things happens because you are a karya. You're not a karana. You have to be outside of it to understand how the birth and etc. takes place. If you are within the birth, then you cannot really understand the whole thing. So clearly, the entire Jagat is not man-made. We know that. So there has to be someone other than that, and that is Ishvara. So we can figure it out. It's very simple. So he says, Etadeva Anumanam, this proposition, this inference, samsari vyatirikta Ishvara astitvadi sadhanam manyante. He says there has to be some other cause for the Ishvara. I just wanted to reference this for those of you that are following the Gambhirananda. So, all right, so just to give you the reference on this, is given on the very last sentence of page 14 and the first few sentences of page 15 of the Gambhirananda book. So, the last sentence is, those who stand by God as the cause. So he says, for example, the Nayayikas rely on this very inference alone for establishing the existence, etc., of God as distinguished from a transmigrating soul. The transmigrating soul means the jiva, the human being, that goes from life to life to life. Okay? Then the opponent, which is a Nayayika, Nanu, now comes to the fore and says, is not this very inference presented here by the sutra starting with that from which janmadi yasya yataha? He says, you're saying the same thing. You're saying the same thing. So I don't understand why you are making such a big deal that, we have Vedanta Shruti, etc., etc. We can figure it out. And so then the answer starts by saying no. We don't. What you are saying is not true. So now we go back to this one sentence and then we will now leave the text and go into logic in a minute. So he says, I'm just summarizing what we just read. Nanu ihapi tadeva upanyastam. He says that's exactly what you are presenting. Janmadi Sutre, second sutra. He says no. No. Because the Vedanta, so the why we say no? So this is our answer. The Brahma Sutra is not based on Anumanam. It is not based on pure logic. Why is it not based on pure logic? We will now go into detail. So we have to back it up, but at least we take a firm stand. You cannot figure it out, as the Nayayikas say. In fact, what it is a garland of Vedanta Vakyas. That's all it is. So he says, Vedanta Vakya Kusuma Grathanarthatvat Sutranam. So he says that the quality of the sutra is because it is holding together the Vedanta Vakyas. So this is an important thing to understand. This is the crux of this argument. The crux of this argument is, as we have already said that a few times, that Vyasacharya is not an author of the knowledge, he is simply an editor of the knowledge. The author of the knowledge is Ishvara, that presents it in the form of Upanishads and Vedanta Vakyas. And so all the Brahma Sutra does is to string together those Vakyas in the form of a garland. That's all. It is in fact the invisible thread that you don't see. That's all that it is doing. In other words, Shankaracharya and Veda Vyasacharya and all of the other acharyas are born into, this is apaurushaya, it is not human made, as opposed to the Nayayikas and Sankhyas and Yogas and Buddhas. They come up with their own philosophy. They don't accept, some of them do. In this case, it is, so they are Ishvaravadinaha. They understand Ishvara, but they don't see the authority of the Vedas. Some they also, but they misinterpret it. Oops, that reminds me, I forgot to record the audio. Darn it. I may have to ask Raj to. So, so here's the difference. In the case of Nayayikas and so on, they come out with a logic on Ishvara must be the cause. And up to that it is true. So we don't need the Shastra. So we say you need the Shastra. Why that is the case will now be discussed in this Purnanandiya. And so this is what is called pure logic is unreliable. But a Shruti-based logic is reliable. That's what you should really say. So that's why there has to be a combination of Shruti and Yukti. You cannot have Yukti alone. Why can't we have Yukti alone? This will be explained in a minute. But at least this is the contention. This is what we have to prove. This is our stand. In fact, Swami Paramarthananda had given this very nice reference. So those of you that know Sadhana Panchakam, the 5 verses, very important summary of the sadhanas. Sadhana means what do I need to do in my life to understand this? So this is presented in the Sadhana Panchakam very nicely. In the 3rd verse of the Sadhana Panchakam, it goes like this. Vakyarthascha vicharyatam shrutisiraf pakshaf samasriyatam dustarkat suviramyatam shruti tarko nusandhitiyatam brahmaivasmiti vibhavyatam ahar garva parityajyatam dehesmin iti rujyatam buddhajanai vadav parityajyatam. So this is the third one. And here, the second line of that is Dustarkat suviramyatam Shrutimatas tarko anusandiyatam. So that means that Dustarkat means the logic, pure logic which has defects in it should be discarded. Duskarkat suviramyatam. Then Shrutimatas tarko anusandiyata. Logic is important, but the logic in keeping up with the Shruti is good. Pure human logic is defective and should be kept. So this was given in Sadhana Panchakam. Okay, so now we go into why the pure logic should not be accepted. So this is the analysis, and now I'm seeing that I'm already short of time, but let's start on it anyway. Okay, so Swami Paramarthananda at this point has taken to the Purnanandiya, which is a third level analysis, beautiful analysis. So now we are embracing the third level of the analysis. I think this is what I've already done. So here in this analysis, so there are two reasons given why we do not accept the Nayayika view that it is sufficient to understand Ishvara as the Karana without going through the Shastra. This is their view. There are two reasons to reject that. One of them is, we have already covered that now, and that is the Brahma Sutra is not an independent work, but in fact it simply articulates what the Vedanta Shastra is saying through the Upanishads. It's a stringing of the garland only. It's not an independent creation. So this is the first reason for it. That it is, in fact, it is called, sometimes Brahma Sutra is called Vedanta Sutra. So this is what it is. It's just simply a restatement of what the Vedanta is saying. So now we come to what the Nayayikas are saying and how we refute that. So they give three anumanams, three different aspects of what they believe in it, which says that that is enough to figure out that Ishvara is the cause. First anumanam is, so in Sanskrit it is called Jagat Sakartrakam Karyatvad Ghatavat. Jagat Sakartrakam. Jagat is a karyam. It's a some Jagat means the whole world, our experiences of life. This is a creation. You cannot have a creation without a creator. Like, for example, a pot made. A pot means that someone has created a clay pot consciously. Because clay sitting on the ground, which is amorphous, it doesn't mean you can have that without a cause. But if you see a nice made round cup, that means somebody went through a lot of work to mix some water with the clay to shape it and then use some mechanism for making it round and then dried it so that it hangs together. This is what a pot is. So that means there is a conscious person that has to do it. It cannot come by itself. So similarly, we find that the whole world is a creation, very specific creation. It doesn't does happen by itself. There is sun is coming up. There is predictability of seasons. There is moon, and there is an attraction with the water. All those kinds of things. This is a creation. So, and clearly the human beings cannot create it all that. So therefore, it must be Ishvara. So the creator must be Ishvara alone because all the sun and the moon and so on and so forth are not created by Jiva. Okay? No, actually, this has two. So the first Anumana was that any purposeful creation is done by is a conscious person. This is Anumana number one. The second Anumana is that this Jagat cannot be done by a human being, so it must be done by Ishvara. We define who Ishvara is, who knows how to create. So this is the second Anumana. Right? First one is that it has a creator. The second one is that the creator is not a human being. Okay? Then the third one is that because it's a infinite creation, therefore the person must have infinite knowledge. So the level of the creation tells you the level of the creator. Like for example, a very rudimentary painting can be done by a child that doesn't really know very much about painting and colors and so on. Whereas a Rembrandt painting requires a master who understands what is it to be depicted, the complexity of it, mixing it together, having darkness and light and all that. So here we find that the whole world is so complex and so well put together that the creator must be Sarvagyaha. So he says, Ishvaraha Sarvagyaha Sarvakartritvat Vyatirekena Kulalavat. So it means that a kulala is just a simple creation. Kulala means a pot. A clay pot is called kulala. A clay pot is very simple. You don't need a scientist to do this. Some poor villager who has been trained to make clay pots can do it. It just takes a couple of days to figure it out. But to make some iPhone or something like that requires a lot of intelligence. So the whole world is a very complex thing, so therefore it must be Sarvagya. And so now we have a logic. This is the Nayayika saying. All this is Nayayika talking. The Nayayika says now we have a complete analysis of why you can figure it out. Number one, that anything which is created must have a creator. Secondly, this creation cannot be done by a human being. The third is that it is such an amazing creation that you require an amazing person to do this, and that is Ishvara. Our case is closed. Therefore, Ishvara is the cause of this, is the creator. Very easy to see. You can figure it out by Anumanam. Why do we need the Shastra to tell us all this? Any intelligent human being can figure this out, that this Ishvara is the creator of it. And so we say no to all of this. In fact, um, the, um, the person who wrote the Purnanandiya, I think his name is Amalananda. Amalananda wrote the Purnanandiya. Purnananda Saraswati. So what am I saying? Purnananda Saraswati, we went through this. Amalananda is somebody else. So when he composed this, attacking the Nayayikas, which we will do next time. I clearly ran out of time, so I don't want to really even start doing that until next class, which will be a really interesting one on why we say no to this. So, Puranand Saraswati, when he composed these, I don't know, this is not I don't think it's a verse, but anyway, it's a commentary. Maybe it is, I'm not sure because I have not read it. At the end says, I'm very sorry. He says to Ishvara, I really apologize for making you, by attacking you to say, no, Ishvara cannot, it's not Ishvara, it is not Ishvara, it is not Ishvara. That's not what I mean to do. I don't want to agree with some defective logic. I know you are the creator, but I don't want to base it on a human being's logic. I want to base it on the Shastra. So please forgive me. And he composed a verse to say Prayashchita, that even though I appear to be attacking you, I'm not attacking you. I know you are the creator. So he said that. So so next time, we will point out the defects of the pure logic, Shushka logic, Dushtarkat, that one, point by point. First Anumanam, second Anumanam, third Anumanam. And so that all be done outside of the Shankara Bhashya in more detail. So that we will do next time. So I thought that I will be able to do it, but I clearly ran out of time, so we will just have to do that next time. Okay, so let us finish the last 5 verses of Dakshinamurti Stotra and then do a prayer. Then we will see if you have any questions. Om Rahu Grasta Divankarendu Sadrisho Maya Samachadanaat Sanmatra Karanopasamharnato Yo Bhut Sushuptaf Puman Pragaswapsamiti Prabodha Samaye Yaf Pratyabhigyayate Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Balyadishu api jagradadishu tatha Sarva swavastha swapi Vyavritta svanuvartamanamahamityanta spurantam sada Swatmanam prakati karoti bhajatam Yo mudraya bhadraya Tasmai Shri Guru Murtaye Namaidam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Vishwam Pashyati Karyakaranataya Swaswami Sambandhataha Shishyacharyataya Tathaiva पितृपुत्राद्यात्मना भेदतः स्वप्ने जागृति वा य एष पुरुषो माया परिभ्रामितः तस्मै श्री गुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्री दक्षिणामूर्तये भूरम्भांस्य नलो नीलो अम्बरमहर्नार्थो हिमांशुः पुमान् इत्याभाति चराचरात्मकमिदं यस्यैव मूर्त्यष्टकम् नान्यत् किञ्चन विद्यते विमृशतां यस्मात् परस्मात् विभोः तस्मै श्रीगुरुमूर्तये नमः इदं श्रीदक्षिणामूर्तये सर्वात्मत्वमिति स्फुटीकृतमिदं यस्मादमुष्मिंस्तवे तेनास्य श्रवणात् तदर्थमननात् ध्यानात् च संकीर्तनात् सर्वात्मत्वमहाविभूतिसहितं स्यादीश्वरत्वं स्वतः सिद्ध्येत् तत्पुनरष्टधा परिणतं चैश्वर्यमव्याहतम् ॐ अशुभानि निराचष्टे तनोति शुभसन्ततिं स्मृतिमात्रेण यत्पुंसां ब्रह्मतन्मङ्गलं परम् अतिकल्याणरूपत्वात् नित्यकल्याणसंश्रयात् स्मर्तॄणां वरदत्वात् च ब्रह्मतन्मङ्गलं विदुः ओङ्कारश्चाथ शब्दश्च द्वावेतौ ब्रह्मणः पुरा कण्ठं भित्त्वा विनिर्यातौ तस्मान्माङ्गिलिकौ उभौ ओमथ 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 असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्योर्मा अमृतं गमय ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः हरिः ॐ श्रीगुरुभ्यो नमः हरिः ॐ All right. So nice to see you all. So wonderful. So I will send out an email in the next few days or so after I heard back from you regarding the survey. And I think the overwhelming response, 3-1 approximately, was to not go back to the classes on-site classes, but to continue with this online classes with the supplement that we will actually have a Zoom session every now and then to have a more in-depth discussion. So what I would say is that it's a compromise. It is not the best of everything. So what I would recommend is the following. We're going to actually have a Zoom session, which I'm gearing to. Raj Paripatyadar has already given me a first primer, and I think one of these days we will have a Zoom session. And how often we have, we don't know, but we will see how to do that. The other thing is that what I would recommend is that if you had some questions about the class that just ended, then please send me an email. And I would be very happy to, as I've been doing with some of you, I'll be very happy to go back and forth and go into it. So it's not the best possible thing as in a class, but at least it is something. So I would imagine that many of you may have some questions about what was said, need for some clarification, more than what is given in the chat. Then we can do it either in a Zoom session, but the Zoom session will not be after each class. That'll happen maybe once a quarter or so. So if you wanted to have a specific doubt about a specific point brought up in the class, then I would say email is the best one. So I think we're going to go slow, and in a way, I think it is a good thing that you feel that the current YouTube is sufficient, and you're able to see what I'm trying to do. So that's a good thing. I'm very happy about that. If you came back with it and saying, no, this is not very satisfactory, we need to have a class overwhelmingly, like some of you did, you preferred to have a real class. But I think the upshot of that is that we're going to go slow and continue with then step-by-step enhancement of these classes. And then who knows, a year from now or whatever, we might again meet again. And certainly for those of you that are all over in India, in Italy, and other places, then we will continue to do online classes, regardless of whether we go back to Milpitas or San Jose or any other place. So I wanted to convey that. Then I don't see any other questions from you. So with that, I take your leave, and hopefully we will see. Let's see. Oh, that's an interesting thing. So the next weekend is the 4th of July weekend. And I think we will not have a class. I toyed with the idea of having something, either a specific class or a general class. But I think a couple of you had said that because things are opening up and people have not taken some trips outside their home for a while, we will have a lot of absences. And so for that reason, we will not have a class over the next weekend. And I'll send you an email to confirm that. And we will meet again 2 weeks from today. Okay? Hari Om.